Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Zeros of Funded. I'm Jack. I'm joined today by David, who is the CTO over at Cord, doing big things within the recruitment space like us. So, but more on a tech perspective. So, I just wanted to kind of have a chat with him today, find out a little bit more about what they do, and then we can kind of take things from there. But hi, David. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Hi, Jack. Thanks for the kind words, and thanks for having me here today. I'm David. I cover the technology side of things at Cord, so I'm in charge for engineering activities, data design, and as well as cybersecurity related matters as well. So a little intro about Cord. Cord's a hiring toolkit for people and companies. We help people find the best work by enabling them to speak directly with hiring managers. So instead of having to submit CVs into yet another ATS or job application black hole, you get to message and speak directly with people that are hiring. So that's what we stand for and try to do.
Oh, nice. Well, yeah, I think a lot of people that watch this podcast will probably have heard of Cord as well, or come across it at some point when they've been looking for jobs and stuff. I've personally used Cord to kind of get in touch with people like through my day job as well. But yeah, I suppose how did you get involved with Cord then? What's the story there?
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one because like this was quite a few years ago, and I was looking for a new role, and I didn't want to. Obviously, Cord didn't exist at that point, and I didn't want to. I wasn't keen on just submitting my CV everywhere and not hearing back. So what I ended up doing was I would go on Angel List, as it was called back then, look up positions that were open, and then go online, try to find out who the hiring manager was, and figure out the email, and then try to email them directly my CV. So basically, what Cord was doing before it existed. I got quite decent replies out of it, but I guess the irony is I didn't get my job at Cord through this. I ended up Ben messaged me on Angel List directly, and that's how I ended up at Cord. But it's funny how it aligns with how my job search process was already at that point. And when they contacted me, I was like, "Hey, this is what I've been doing for the
Yeah.
past few weeks. This makes sense." And yeah, that would be interesting to try to build something in this space. So that's how
Yeah.
I ended up at Cord.
No, that's crazy. Like somebody reached out to you about a job that you were already doing on your own essentially, and that their product was going to solve a problem for you at the time as well. I
Yeah,
can't
exactly. It
imagine
it resonated a lot with me as a result.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can't imagine there's many times that's actually happened before, like where it's directly impacted. But yeah, no, that sounds cool to be fair. Like, so you've been with them since the start, is that right? Like you were on the original engineering team there.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Ah, cool. So talk me through like how that's kind of gone there, because they've been going since what 2016 or something, right? So like that's like
Mhm.
6 7 years now that you've been there. It's more than most engineers stay stay like in the same company and stuff. So like tell me about how that's been like, because you've obviously seen the journey right the way through. Like what's that experience been like?
Mhm. Yeah, it's been quite some time. I mean, it's why I stayed this long. It's because even though it's been quite some time, the nature of things and the nature that we operate and the things I do have changed quite a lot over the past few years. And when we started, it was obviously quite uh, just like any startup. And when you begin, it's quite scrappy.
Yeah.
You are rushing to get your MVP out. You are, tacking on as many at the minimum number of features as possible, and trying to just get things out the door. Um, and then the first few years was really about finding product market fit, and in some ways also finding ourselves as a team. So it's a lot of like listening to speaking with users, getting their feedback, especially the early adopters, figuring out what they wanted and liked and disliked from the product. And then obviously we pivoted quite a few times in terms of the our pricing model, in terms of how we acquired candidates, and it was just a process of iterating consistently. I think with Cord's case, because we did not take any external funding, it was quite a different journey, because at every step of the way, we had to be somewhat profitable in order to be able to sustain ourselves. And I think for the first few years, it was just me, Katrina, and Tom in the tech and product, and it was a very small team that was building the product side out. And in some ways, it meant that we had less people, but in some ways, a small team meant that we were able to move very quickly and be passionate about it and get things out. And so that was the first few years of it. Obviously, a lot of us in tech have experienced the post-COVID kind of boom. There's from 21 to 22, where suddenly like revenue quadrupled, and then that was when it felt like a roller coaster ride, where you suddenly hit into this place where you're just trying to scale everything. I remember my weeks turned into every day was this non-stop interviews to hire more people and to expand the team. And every time I went to the office, it's like, oh, here's some new faces meeting for the first time as well, that's joining other teams. So that was really like a rush, I guess, that we all experience as scaling up a company, which has been probably pretty exhilarating. And then finally, as we all know now, with the rate hikes and the funding crunch, companies are tuned down hiring, which has also affected us as well. And it's in the past year, it's really forced us to be more lean, be more efficient with what to do. So really a bit of a roller coaster ride from start to end over the past 7 years. Yeah.
So how would you say, like obviously leading this team through that like has to bring its own challenges as well, like even from like a kind of like, even if you're not CTO at that point, if you're kind of leading a team or anything, the constant changing and constant trying to figure things out has to bring its own kind of like struggles and stuff. Like, how would you say, like, as a team, you actually adapted to that? Did it go smoothly, or was there like loads of turbulence and stuff? Like, what was that transition actually like through COVID?
Yeah, some bits are definitely tricky, because when you scale up, you start to realize like processes that worked well when it was 5 or 10 people do not necessarily scale well when it's 20 or 30. And within, for example, engineering, like suddenly you need to think, okay, how do you run scrums? So how do you run stand-ups? So how do you keep things agile when suddenly there's a lot more people? And then when you add like multiple or more reporting layers, when you introduce engineering managers and introducing heads of, then how do you ensure that everyone's moving in the same direction? How do you when you could just, for example, run the whole tech and product meeting once a fortnight, suddenly that changes. So you can't just it requires a bit more planning. And I think the other part is obviously with more people joining, then you have to be cautious / careful with how that affects your culture. So for a few different angles, like making sure that when you're hiring someone, that their culture will align strongly with what you're building, and especially when they join as well, like figuring out ways to do training, or like be clear about, okay, what are the shared values, what we do. As part of our onboarding, we always have segments where we, from a tech and product perspective, talk about the company's values. So taking the company's values and embedding them, and from a technical perspective. So for example, one of our values is creating change. And how we translated that into tech and product was, how can we use open source? How can we contribute back to open source and create change and help out the industry as well? So I think it's investing time into making sure that the culture doesn't change as well as it's, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, That makes sense, to be fair. Like, so how have you actually found transitioning? Because you didn't start at Cord in like a leadership position, right? Like you've kind of evolved like into that role now. So
Yeah.
how did you find switching from being like an individual like contributor into like this like leading this team of 20, 30 people now? Like how have you found that? And is there any sort of tips you could give to anybody else that's kind of like doing a similar sort of journey for themselves now?
Sure, yeah. Um, I think some people have called it that transitioning from IC to management is it's not a promotion, it's pretty much a career switch, and I think that's true. Um, the way I kind of went at it was, okay, what skills can I transfer over from engineering towards management? And why I really enjoy engineering is the chance to solve technical problems and look at management. I think there's some parallels there in the sense that instead of solving technical problems now, I'm solving human problems instead. So how do you uh, bring the best out of someone? How do you manage a problem with underperformance? How do you uh, mediate a conflict between two people? How do you, yeah, find a process that streamlines things? And I think my initial approach to it was to was to look at it that way, and obviously there's and it translated into things like I remember setting out to build a new wiki, a Wikipedia for new managers. So helping outline them, okay, how one-on-ones could run, things to cover and things like that. So like taking quite a bit of an engineering look towards management, and it's at the same time complementarily. I think it's been helpful to read out material around it. I think there's a wonderful book by Michael Lobb called Managing Humans that covers this from an engineering manager's perspective on how to manage teams and guide teams towards success. But overall, I think it's mainly been just keeping in mind that it's a mindset shift in terms of like I think when you're IC, you take a lot of pride in the work that you do. You make sure you want to get things done. But once you move to management, you need to realize that you kind of need to A, trust your team, and then B, kind of let go a bit of like things, and that willingness to let go and trust that your team will execute well, and being there to guide them. It's probably been the hardest bit.
Yeah, but I suppose that's like the main crux of it, isn't it? Is like to be a successful manager. Like first of all, you need the right people around you and kind of like the right team working for you as well. Like as like you said, you can't do all the work anymore if you're a manager. It's about delegating and trusting people to kind of go and do that for you. Would you say that's something that you kind of had at the forefront of your mind whilst you were hiring all these people like into your team and stuff? Is that like what I guess what was the main focus for you at that point? Was it culture or was it people that could do the job or like what? How did you go about that?
Mhm. Interesting question. The main thing that we looked for was actually a product mindset. I think it's there are quite a lot of talented engineers out there, and but I think like it's not the easiest to find engineers that have very strong product mindset. So we look for people that were willing to or open to really understanding the problem and dive into it and not be shy, well, not shy away from like challenging and saying, okay, is this the right way to solve this problem? Is this should this be what we're doing with our users? And that was probably the thing that we spent the most time trying to figure out for people from interviews and to hire for. Because I think ultimately at the end of the day, if you have a decent level of aptitude and technical competency, those things can be skilled and leveled up fairly easily. But I think that engagement with the product and willingness to think about user problems is a bit different and paramount. And yeah, I'm glad we were able to find quite a few engineers in that space and build out a whole culture where the team is always questioning the product and questioning how can we solve this differently for our users and make it better.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. No, I agree. I think it's a really, really smart way of going about it. So now you've built out this team for yourself now. Like you've got like 20 engineers working for you in your team and stuff. Like, what's the plan moving forward? Because obviously there's been a bit of a roller coaster since you started in terms of like the economy and stuff. It's been absolutely crazy, right? So what's the plan to kind of mitigate a little bit against that in the future? Like if say there's another big dip coming up like in next year or something, like what's the plan to kind of work with that? And like is there any plan for the next year or?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest lessons that we learn scale up phase is that uh, is the idea of building something that your product in such a way that there are parts of it that are counter cyclical. Obviously, when the times are good and you know things are always heading up, you wouldn't worry too much. But what if there is a fundamental shift in the market, like what we've been seeing? How do you build something ahead of time that is able to withstand that kind of pressure? And with everything that's happened in the past year, it's been good because we've focused our efforts on helping people more than ever. In a year ago, roughly, like more than half of the conversations on Cord were initiated by companies. The companies would reach out to candidates, and we've seen a massive inversion of that trend. I think about 70 to 80% now of conversations are started by companies. And I remember hiring a few months ago, and the moment we started hiring, the whole inbox got flooded. I don't remember even doing any searching for candidates at all. It's just candidates were reaching out. So that shifted the market significantly, and we've had to adapt and build tools that are helpful for candidates and companies to help companies respond better to candidates, make sure that it's easier for them to respond. And then on the candidate side, for example, building tools like CVs or like improving their profile to make them appear better in front of companies. And also we've done this project called Index Positions, where we've indexed almost all the positions that are in the UK and Europe, so that when you're on Cord, you can very easily view everything that's going on. So like a lot of that has tied in quite closely as well with some experiments that we've done into generative AI, to whether it's from simple profile updates to more complex things like calculating feed scores, etc. So that's tied in nicely. And more pertinently, I guess, towards your question, I think next 12 months, it's about building a counter-cyclical revenue stream. So we're actually working quite closely now with a few agencies as well to expand the job pool that is available to candidates. And on the candidate side, well, this is not announced yet, but we're looking towards seeing if we can provide candidates with more data and insights for a very small monthly fee. So building both more revenue streams out, basically.
Nice, fair enough. Yeah, can't agree more. To be fair, like it seems like so far it's been quite like single track, like the kind of product at Cord, where it's like you've got, if the market's great and everybody's hiring, it's fantastic and everybody's making money, but as soon as that goes down, they're like I suppose like adding extra revenue streams in will kind of counteract that and stuff. Like makes sense. So because obviously a lot of the companies that we speak to at a startup scale, like and kind of like scale up and things like that, it's like they're going through like funding rounds and things like that, like VC funding, like angel funding, and that's how they're getting their money. Like, Do you reckon there's like a really big difference between like companies that go down that route and kind of like Cord that has been like revenue driven since the start, like in terms of being actually able to scale a team? Like, do you reckon that's impacted you quite a lot, or like what would you say?
I don't think it's made a huge impact, but I don't think that is typically the norm. I think that if we had funding and accelerated our hiring at the start, we would have launched things faster. Definitely, I mean that's definitely the case. But I think we were quite lucky that we were that working Cashin and Tom, we were able to create a core team that was really passionate about the problem and um, that was able to balance technical depth and the urge to get things out and being able to do a lot more with a small team. And but I don't think that is necessarily the typical case. I think like with that given a choice, probably it would have made sense to take more funding and like to scale the team, and we'll be able to realize some of our ambitions a bit more quickly with appropriate funding. Yeah.
I suppose like a lot of companies kind of go down the funding route and get all this initial income that then if they're not profitable, like it tends to kind of run out quite fast as well. So I suppose like you've gone about it in a different way, which it kind of guarantees that you've got money in the long run as well, like, and you can kind of budget for that and accommodate for it. Whereas if you get like an initial influx of cash, that then you've got nothing else, like, and no guarantee that you're going to be able to pay everybody's wages and no kind of stuff to back that up, then I suppose like it's quite a sensible way to go about it, and it adds a bit more stability in there as well, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely de-risks a bit, and I think like so. I think it's with funding. I mean, money is never free, right? And with that, you bring in investors, bring in people. That on one hand, obviously, you get lovely investors that will be able to give you insights that help you guide the company. But at the same time, obviously, it's a different kind of pressure to grow, and you maybe push down routes of growing that are not necessarily sustainable into the long term, and hence that's why you end up in situations where you overspend the runway that you have, and then end up end up spending all the money before you're able to create profitable products. So if I think we come to a point in time nowadays where I've seen more and more startups that do it a bit like us, where you have a smaller core team, you take less funding, but if you're able to get to a point of profitability a lot earlier, then you don't need to give up the equity and give up the control in order to take funding, and it de-risk the whole process for yourself as well. So
Nice.
There's some merits to it, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So like from your perspective there, because obviously like Cord is like the platform's built, it's up and running, it's profitable, like and you're making revenue and stuff. From your perspective as an engineer now, like would you say like your role has completely changed since you started? Because like when you're a startup, like as you alluded to before, like you're going absolutely crazy trying to get things live, get things pushed out and stuff like that. Like has it like slowed down a lot now and kind of like what's the process now? Like is it still kind of as fast paced as energetic over there, or is it like is everything a lot more sensible and, and kind of thought through now, I suppose? Like,
um, I do think, and I hope that it's a reflection of reality. I think like we as a team with our pace hasn't really slowed down that much. And obviously we have more processes like in terms of code reviews, in terms of like how do we run like owner meetings, how do we run like pre-planning sessions. So those things definitely slow things down a little bit, but they kind of speed things up in some ways as well, and make the release and the go live situations a lot cleaner. There's a few things that's contributed to it. And one part, I think it's obviously the market crunch. There's a lot more pressure from the top to iterate quickly and get things out in front of users. So that's really pushed us along a little bit. But number two, the team now has been around for a bit more time. Everyone's gotten comfortable with each other, trusting with each other, and develop a higher level of expertise, and that's meant that we're able to move more quickly through things. I think first few years we were still struggling and trying to get it right. How do we speak with users? How do we run user interviews? And now those things are automatic. We've nailed the process down, and that's meant we'll be able to move quite quickly. And I do think it's a bit of a pipe dream, but I do think like there are ways that you can you won't be as fast as when it's a 2-person team, but there are ways that you can get close to that in terms of the feeling of velocity around it. So it's something to aspire for.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, but it sounds like you've still got a lot on the go there, and are still like pushing out new features and new stuff anyway. So like, I presumed it wasn't completely stale, but but yeah, no, good to know anyway. But yeah, look, I think we'll leave it there anyway. Like, I think we've kind of covered a lot there in a short space of time and stuff. But thank you so much for coming on and giving us your insight into kind of like management and your team and things like that. Thank you for watching as well. We'll be back with another episode like in a couple of weeks, I'm sure. But yeah, like that's all for now. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. Thanks.